casting, studying. It's always fun to watch other people play StarCraft. It's not so fun to play StarCraft. Sometimes. It is a best of 3 from the European EPL Open Cup. This was one of the round of 8 matches. In the top left, as the red Protoss, he is Neeb. In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, it is Denver. Denver was actually knocking people out left and right for the IAM qualifiers. Unfortunately, while knocking people out, he didn't actually make it himself, which would have been the ultimate goal there. I still give a lot of credit to the people he knocked out. I think he actually knocked out Neeb from one of the tournaments, from one of the qualifiers. Neeb played in like 3 of them, or at least 2 of them, America and Europe. And then Denver also played, I think, like 1 Korean Cup or something. I don't know. I was just flipping through it, getting some preliminary stats down and notes, and I was like, man, Denver's like the common link in all of these like knocked out stages I'm writing down. So he's actually been performing pretty well, and I see him a lot on ladder when I watch the European stream. Like him and Harsum were just like one after another after another after another. Lots of games there. I think at one point they weren't on ladder, to be fair. I think at some point he was also doing a lot of scrims with players, but I know at least once it was just hitting him over and over again, and he was using his alt account, which is like, it's called like Blizzard's favorite MU, it was like his clan and his name or something like that. Anyways. Yeah, Denver's been really killing it. Made some waves in the past couple of years, just having like a cool style and being that just, you know, up-and-coming Zerg, but as the European scene is so well saturated with Zergs, it takes a lot to actually like rise up above just the up-and-comer go-to phrase for him. And unfortunately, he's not quite there yet, but if he does perform well at IEM, which he is attending, then certainly that will go a long way. But Neeb, I mean, does Neeb even need an introduction? Does he need an introduction? I don't think so. We all know him. We all love him. He's even come out of his shell recently, so if you didn't love his original shy personality, maybe you love some of the dry humor and jokes he's been cracking in interviews. It's been pretty cool. Anywho, clickety-clack the keyboard. Stargate Opener has been Neeb's go-to in every matchup. I think he's a very strong preference for the Stargate ability to control, and its follow-ups are also pretty versatile in all the matchups as well. Adept's a little bold going into the main without seeing what was in there, and well, I guess it saw it before it actually went, but still, you don't usually want to actually send the Adept in unless you can get into one of these cracks. Because that's when it's going to do the most damage, and even then, though, it wouldn't have done that much. Denver was going to be able to micro no problem. There's not much else happening out in the map, so kind of weird that Neeb did that. Either was desperate for a scout, or misclicked. He was already so over his head, I guess, in the natural. This was just a purposeful scout. His Phoenix first does delay that Oracle follow-up scout from the Adept. It's Probe, Adept, Oracle, right? To get the pretty much full scouting of a Zerg, so any of the clever timings they have, hopefully is seen by one of those units. But if you go Phoenix first, I guess that can add a little bit of apprehension, so maybe that's the reason he was so eager to dive in with his Adept. Phoenix can go across the map and you know, scout, of course, if it really was scared, but you usually want to take out that Overlord. He's gonna get 2 probably, eventually. Overlord speed coming in pretty quickly. But not, wait. Yeah, but not the, okay, that's a little weird. It's not the immediately after speed, Overlord speed. So it's actually not the quickest you can get. The timing just threw me off a little bit. He had like an extra 80, 90 gas before he started that, where usually it's like pretty much one after the other. So maybe he meant to do it, just didn't have enough minerals. Maybe he thought about doing this, frustrated with the Phoenix. I don't know, but he's gonna have it. It is just a follow-up third Nexus, though. pretty fast. We do have some gateways up and running, but only a robo so far. Twilight Council and Forge should be slapped down as well very soon. But if there's no Twilight Council and Forge that quickly, then why is that, right? That's a question. And the reason? These Adepts right here. Going for more Adepts than starting to add in those sentries, looking for a lot more kills than just the one the Adept got, and delaying his tech structures to do so. Is that really going to work out, though? Is Denver going to be prepared? He's got a couple Lings already on the way, but the Adepts already in the natural, shading through to the actual mineral line of the natural. That's where these Lings, even in bigger numbers than this, really struggle. But getting a partial surround on the Adepts is probably the best case scenario for Denver, who was a little late to building those Lings. Ideally, you have them ready to kind of like surround the Adepts as they shade, and then they really feel quite... they already feel trapped. They already feel like they're kind of useless. But by letting them into the natural mineral line, despite getting a partial surround, taking the best of a bad scenario, it's still 9 drones dead, and a handful of Lings, 8 Lings. And it looks like 4 more drones died every which way with the oracles and everything else that happened. So not too shabby right there. Question always is it worth the delay of the Twilight Council and the Forge? I guess the sentries are also delayed, so, you know, we might talk about them having full energy, but that's probably not going to be an issue. It's a lot more on the +1 in the charge. And, to an extent, the Templar Archives, depending on what you were going for. Sometimes you see players go straight up to the Templar Archives, which all the gas is taken, I assume that he will. Sometimes you see him really hold off on it. Thank you, Angelus, for that raid. Welcome, guys. Casting some StarCraft here. Neeb goes to the gym 20 hours a day, but still gets 7 hours of sleep. Yeah. Once did a very weird rush on Neeb. Yeah, Snoot would do a couple of weird rushes against Protoss. As much as he was known as a passive Swarmhost player. He had a couple tricky builds. Very, very small army here. If Denver had any sizable army of his own, if he was actually going for a 3-base attack, Neeb's probably screwed. If he was sharking around with 40 Lings, Neeb also might be in danger, although not screwed, because force fields exist. Although there's really not a lot of force field energy. Lucid Phoenix was also used just to get to the main base, and that was just truly a poke forward. A, hey, don't think you can get away with being extremely greedy poke. Because that was just not a very intimidating army. Behind this is Storm pretty quickly. And adding on Archons as the gas rolls in. Continuing to add on Immortals. All of his upgrades will be finishing pretty soon, assuming he chronos that Storm. They'll all be finishing around the same time. 4th base pretty quick here for Neeb, really ramping up to that macro game. Unfortunately forced to cancel by a handful of Lings, which are going to be getting +1 soon enough. Denver on 5 bases. He actually double expanded pretty much with the 4th and 5th. He's going to be going up to Roach Ravager, Ling, Baneling with a little splash, little sprinkling of potential Spire. I'll see how much he actually uses that. Not banking up too many minerals right now to get a lot of mutas, and even adds on Infestation Pit. So the assumption is he's really not going to use the Spire. It was not scouted by Neeb, though, and that might actually pull him into maybe using it for just 8 or 10, getting a decent amount of damage on the probe line, and perhaps even taking out a Warp Prism type deal. But yeah, it's kind of late. Things have already passed that point where you just really don't have... If you don't have the knowledge of the Spire, it's deadly. He finally got eyes on it, and there's just no dedication to mutas. So that's going to be for the future. That's going to be for either a gigantic muta swap in the future, but I don't think so. Or it's going to be for the Broodlords. But the options are there because Denver got up to 5 bases, 80 drones pretty easily. You know, aside from that one poke, the Adepts... I mean, yeah, the Adepts actually did some okay damage, but the follow-up wasn't really there. It wasn't swift, it wasn't powerful. So he's kind of just, like, rolled with it and got, like, a shit ton of things. Including a shit ton of army. You just need to wait for the Banelings to finish and typical hooks to finish as well. +1 missile is going to finish. I mean, this is kind of an anti-timing from Neeb, who maybe 20 seconds earlier could have hit before the Baneling speed. That would have been pretty good, but as it is, not going to work out, and Denver's creep spread is also just a little bit intimidating. When you're pushing on to creep on this map through the bridges, it's really annoying. You know, you can't quite send one unit forward because the Lings will get surround on it. You don't really want to push your army forward just in case they come swamping in from all 3 bridges. It's awkward. So Neeb goes back into a defensive stance, where he does pretty well usually. Force fields are going to help a little temporarily. That's really it for the force fields, though. One Guardian Shield. They're trying to control the pacing of this fight. Neeb is working with a few units. It's always the Protoss's curse here. Few but important units. But he's really making it work. He's got plenty of storms backed up. So the force fields created some of that SimCity, and then the storms, in a way, also created some SimCity. Looks like the safe strap wasn't too great. Archon wants... Oh, well, that one's a little bit better. The Archon wants the Baneling to explode on it. That'd be a good trade. And unfortunately, the Baneling's still rolling through just before +2 is done. So they're not going to get the most amazing hits on the probes, and there weren't that many probes to begin with. But this is a little bit awkward. Leaving behind 2 Archons, the Banelings could still roll in with +2 and get some serious damage done. So I'm just going to assume all those Banelings get hits. Oh, no, perfectly timed in the pool, actually. Perfectly timed. So 8 probes in total, but still 5 bases, because this one is on the way, right? 5 bases, 72 workers. Denver, 83 workers, maybe looking toward a 6th soon, is going up to a greater spire. They're really accelerating to the late game. We're at 11 minutes into PvZ. We didn't really have a dedication to a push from either party, and both of them had in mind just macro and Stargates and Broodlords, which Neeb is trying to get up to Stargates. Denver trying to get up to some Broodlords, Corruptors first. He'll need to get rid of some of his supply, and that's exactly what he's doing here with these run-bys. Banelings rolling on by, gonna try and do something. Looks like they will be able to enter into that probe minefield. And get some probes. 10 go down. I guess it's a probe mining area. A minefield is something different. But while 10 probes go down, the 5th base does survive. Ling surrounds with +2 can be pretty deadly, but it's when they have adrenal glands, that's when you're like, oh, that nexus disappeared in the blink of an eye. Okay, then that's cool. But that was more about trading out the army supply, which made just enough room to get a couple of Broodlords. Up to 6, it looks like, in total. That's really not intimidating when you consider Neeb could get some pretty sick storms and could get his Archons underneath them. He doesn't have Blink, he does not have any Stargate units right now, but the idea here is to pressure, take advantage where you can, and then behind all the losses you might be taking slowly, Jesus, you get your Stargates, you get your Tempest here, and that's exactly what's happening. So he loses a lot of the barriers of his units to those Banelings, but they are still alive. The storms coming down here actually take down the hatchery just at the last second. A couple of DTs were also snuck in there. They went to the 3rd base, so 20 drones so far. Natural base is cleaned up. Looks like they might have grabbed like an evolution chamber or something like along those lines. I'm gonna check in just a second here. It was the Roachborn, actually, which Denver might not necessarily need now, but if he doesn't realize it's killed and then goes to remake Roaches as an emergency, that might go very poorly. Neeb manages to save a handful of those ground units, unable to tackle the Broodlords, but he got a ton of damage done. Hatchery down, 24 drones down. The CT was still doing damage, apparently. I thought that was cleaned up, my bad. And Neeb is on 5 bases, full saturation, upgrades on the way, including some Stargate upgrades. He might lose some more probes over here to a couple cool Baneling drops, but that's not really important as Neeb is banking minerals and gas anyways, and is more so just a matter of time. He's under waiting and choosing his composition to match what his opponent is doing. Didn't realize he built a handful of Phoenix. They come out a lot faster than Tempest, so like in an emergency, you can see Phoenix come out. It's kind of sad, but sometimes it works. I'm not sure when these were built. They just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. But they're trying their best to help. Stasis Trap still being thrown down. He still has 1 Oracle alive that's been pretty busy. +3 attack, +2 attack on the Tempest is finishing up as Denver is stalled out just a bit on his upgrades. You know, got the 2-2 on the attack for both of his ground units, and then stalled out. Had to replace a lot of his drones, a lot of his economy. Not as efficient gas mining as he would have liked with the 5th base going down. Never actually took a 6th, by the way. And as such, not really able to put much into the upgrades. He finally starts +1 attack on the Spire here, but that took a long time. And Neeb's like right into +3 air attack and plasma shields as well. So Neeb's army looking just a little bit more intimidating, even getting some DT blink right now. Vipers are here to try and save the day, get some parasitic bombs, get some abducts, but I mean, even maybe a blinding cloud as the Archons start to encroach on top of the Brood Lords, but there's so many problems here for Denver, and no answers to those problems. The Corruptor's trying to help out, taking on the Phoenix right now, and some of the Tempests, which are actually doing the damage. And despite looking at an even supply numbers-wise, it really was not an even fight. It was not. GG. What is it, the Fist of Neeb? Is that what they were calling it? He's usually pretty good in those types of scenarios. The kind of passive, macro-oriented, let's get to the late game scenario. Isn't it Fist? I mean, is it the Hand of Neeb? It's the Hand of God. I thought it was the Fist of Neeb. On to game number 2 on Eternal Empire. In the top right, up 1, it is Neeb. Still on Ting. And in the bottom left is the Blue Zerg. He is Denver on Infinity Gaming European side of things. We do have some players over in America and 2 or 3 in Korea, right? Some players were on Infinity Gaming, but they might have moved off since China started doling out that money, you know? Denver goes for... Okay, that was just 16 hatch. Thought he was doing something a little bit more clever. Nope, just a 16 hatch. Neeb not really in a hurry to go for any pro block anyways. Mana was doing something that was the exact opposite of what Neeb is doing here. He was going for 13 pro block on the hatchery. So that's sending a probe out immediately, not a rallied probe from the Nexus. And then actually delaying an extra probe by like 5, 6, 7 seconds or something like that. And that did guarantee him a block of the hatchery every time, but I cast, I think, 5 or 6 PVZs from Mana, and it worked like, or rather, he won like 3 of those, 3 or 4 of those. My point is, like, it didn't really seem to affect the Zerg player a lot, as much as anything else, you know? It wasn't like this is the ultimate strategy that actually, you know, gets in the Zerg's mind and wins the game. Like, nah, not really. And so, like, it was a Laser and Lambo that I cast him against, and they actually just seemed to preempt it anyways. They're like, oh, it's Mana. I know what he's gonna do. Anyways, Neeb going for the opposite, just waiting till after Gateway to send a probe out, just for scouting. Doesn't care about pylon blocking. Thanos' goblet is a gauntlet, not goblet. It's actually Neeb's hand. Imagine if it was like Thanos' goblet. You know, like a fancy goblet that has the emeralds encrusted in it. And instead of like getting it on his hand and like snapping his fingers, he just like took a sip with like his pinky out. Would have been far less dramatic. Or maybe more dramatic, but also more comical. Overlook's gonna get some free scouting for a while, but as opposed to last game with a fast second Adept follow-up, he is going to first keep the Adept at home, just scouting with the Shade, and then follow up into a Stalker. Doesn't want that Overlord to stick around. Perhaps wants to go into an Oracle first this game as well, instead of a Phoenix first. We'll see what he decides. He apparently knows about the trick to make this a proper wall-off, which, I mean, I'm not very good, so I don't know it, but I also was watching Showtime, was struggling a little bit to get the perfect wall off like this. He eventually figured it out, but what's nice is not only is this a 2-structure wall off with a unit, you also get the ability to wall off this way, even if they break down the rocks. Because I think it's a pylon or a unit here if you do it correctly. Something like that. As you can see, you put it, you know, put the structures a little bit more far forward than you would usually think, pretty much. Which makes this a non-fast warping according to the Nexus, but a Gateway comes down anyways, right? Anywho. It was an Oracle first, so I'm amazing. Thank you very much. And it is going to be an immediate second Oracle with another Chrono on top of it as well. So really, I mean, I'm expecting a third Oracle, to be honest, but nothing queued up yet. He really wants to punch Denver in the face with this. It's a little funny because most Zergs, if they don't get scouting, they just assume it's Oracles anyways and get a Spore Crawler, Double Queen. Now that he's seen it officially, he actually bothers to get a third Spore Crawler at his third base. But not going to be that third Oracle. Just going into a Phoenix. Now going to clean up the airspace. Stalker is not going to move. As tempting as it is. Overload's going to actually see the Rogo timing, which is nice. So it's not the quickest third base it can possibly be. Oracle's going to try and come into the natural and do some damage. Nope, just kidding. Going to the main, do some damage. Nope, just kidding. Pretty much they're going to be denied. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, that's not supposed to be the case. Generally what happens is it's... Well, I guess it depends on the map. Oh, this is an Oracle anyways. So it's like Spore Crawler main, Spore Crawler natural, third can go without a Spore Crawler for a while. Or the natural doesn't have a Spore Crawler, and you put 2 queens there. But the main is usually one of the spots that always has a Spore Crawler. But as I was correcting myself, I guess it's a little map dependent. How likely is it for an Oracle to swoop on by a natural and go to the main? Or vice versa, right? But that kind of sucked. That was otherwise going to be a perfect defense. Neeb did lose an Oracle, though, so it's a bit of tit for tat. Is it 6 drones for an Oracle? It's whatever. It's okay. It's pretty even. Thank you, Hound of Baskerville. Overlord Speed finishing up. Roachworn on the way for Denver. As well as an Evolution Chamber. Neeb, as I was saying, kind of went for like a bit of a later Nexus. That Robo came down first as a priority, and here comes the Twilight Council Forge upgrades as well. Which means he already has an Immortal. He did such a quick, small attack last game that it looks like he's going to try and do that again. This just feels like something that you would only do if you really understood the game 100%. You know, like I would never suggest a Masters player to do this, because I think 9 times out of 10 they're going to actually be surrounded. Either by an all-in they didn't see coming, or by a handful of units they didn't know were out on the map. Because both are deadly to this. Just a handful of units. The whole idea is that you should have enough scouting, you should know your opponent, you should know Zerg timings, and you should know how to use force fields to not be surrounded, right? But as I compliment the professional Protoss player, it's exactly when he gets surrounded. And even with the quickest recall possible, still loses, so oopsie daisy, still loses a sentry. And I thought he lost the second unit, but I guess not. Ah, buttons! They're hard to use. We had a little bit of a Ling drop, which a Phoenix... Oh, Phoenix, you're so lazy. Did not catch. 4 probes went down. But I was more concerned over if there was a second unit. I could have sworn something else died in the front lines. Maybe an Adept died, actually. That's what it was. Okay. Thank you very much, Hound of Baskerville, for gifting us up to Scorpion. And then to face down... face down, thumb up. Thank you for the 2 gifted subs. Denver, once again, going for the double expands, basically. Just a little off-kilter, a little off-time there. Baneling Nest, Roach Ravager. Oh, no, but this time he has a Hygeless Den. All right, so changing things up a little bit, but kind of once again, just the all the choices in front of him. The buffet of Zerg choices. Last game, it was a Spire instead of a Hygeless Den. This time, Hydras. And that could also mean that he actually goes into Lurkers. So Neeb's still going to have to keep an eye on what the composition is. It's maybe not as deadly as a surprise Spire, which can really just end games really, really dumb. In really dumb ways. But it's, you know, still, if they're actually going to add on 10 Lurkers and you didn't really prep for it, you lost both the Oracles and thought it was no big deal, stuff like that, then yeah, that could definitely kill you. Or on the flip side, you're expecting Lurkers, maybe a bit of a slower push, and they actually have just like a mass Roach Ravager Baneling army that swamps you. So still want to keep an eye out on what they're doing. Neeb is just totally defensive, though. Besides that one little poke that didn't lose him that much. He's got not much going on here. A little bit of Warp Prism harassment as Denver heads up to the Hive. Again, no Spire, so he's not going to be able to get to Greater Spire that quickly. Not sure, Vagabunka. In a very serious way, it sounds like a you problem. Sounds like maybe it's just something with your computer. Well, Surgical Hooks is almost done. Just the +1. Ah, except +1 missile already done. Neeb is moving out with his armies. Once again, got some fairly fast Storm. A lot of other Protoss players are going a lot more... They're a lot heavier on the Archons. which means that they don't have that splash, but it also means that a big old swamp of banelings doesn't necessarily endanger them as much. The Archons will try and live through it, the Immortals try and live through it. But if you do it's with Storm as a priority and you don't get the Storms down, well, then this is what happens. Now, in this case, Neeb was distracted by a double drop in the natural, so that was just absolutely perfectly timed by Denver. But even if Neeb wasn't distracted, those banelings can actually survive a storm. That's what makes him so deadly, and he was just on the edge of that creep, too. So it was absolutely the natural going the way it did that distracted Neeb to end this game as quickly as it's ended, but it also would have been a very scary hold even if he was paying attention. Seems like it might just be the end of the game right here. These Hydras don't have speed, which makes them look a little bit less intimidating, but the Banelings absolutely do. And, well, they're already in position to do a lot of damage. Neeb did not have enough time to recover. GG. Bit of a lamer game number 2. Kind of just not paying attention and getting steamrolled by Banelings. That happens to everyone, I guess. The last match of this best of 3, now that it's tied up 1-1, will be on Triton. Oops, Daisy. In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, he is Neeb. And in the top left, there's the blue Zerg, it is Denver. I don't know, Twitch has done some funky things before to me. Like, there was a time where, like, at this point years ago, I suppose, but there was a time where some channels, only some, would not automatically register a change of audio output. So I would, like, be streaming, turn off my stream, then want to use my speakers, and then watch another stream or the person I hosted or something like that, and it just wouldn't recognize it. So eventually I found out the trick was to put it back on a headset, refresh the Twitch page, and once it was open again, then change the output, and that, like, made Twitch recognize it. But I, like, talked to other people about this, and no one else had anything similar. And I was like, oh, alright, cool, just unique to me, awesome. Thank you very much, Hound of Baskerville, for yet another gifted sub to Vagabunka, who's currently having some internet troubles. Much appreciated. We're on the up and up, guys. We're almost to 400 subscribers. Of course, it'll all be lost as I go to Katowice, but it's, you know what, I'm good with that trade-off. I'm okay with that. No tricks, shenanigans, interesting things in the early game here. Just trying to continue trying to decipher what the exact units coming out from a Protoss player really truly mean. I think Protoss at this point is mostly relying on, like, similar ideas, like the amount of branches that skirt off their tree trunk of build orders. This analogy is amazing. Is really not that far away from each other, you know. It's almost even like a you know, like the South, the family tree of someone from Alabama, you know what I mean? But yeah, the general idea, like, you know, is, yeah, there's some pretty crucial things that can really make something different, but is it as different as compared to, like, an armory versus a fusion core? Not really, I would say. Like, the Adept versus the Stalker follow-up, the Sentry after Stalker follow-up, the 2 guys out of gas, and then the Resident Glaives. Like, it's all clever. And they have those 3 main tech trees, Stargate, Twilight Council, Robo. It's all clever, but it all kind of comes down to the same thing in a lot of PVCs. A lot of PVCs. Which is third base, and then access to Immortal Sentries, right? And Archons. They don't even necessarily have the same equivalent of like mech versus bio, right? Or, you know, and then mech even has 2 subsections of mech. So, I'm not trying to say that Protoss is boring or anything like that, but what I am trying to say is that paying attention to what exactly the stalker, oh, that's gonna die. The adept in a stalker means as opposed to the adept into adept means feels like it's a cool thing to know, and people will be like, wow, oh my god, so smart. Oh, wowzers, oh my god. But ultimately doesn't seem to like affect the game super drastically, right? You're getting like really analytical when we talk about why it would be important, because it's probably talking about differences of like small X amount of supply or small X amount of time. We're talking in broad strokes for some other matchups is a lot more important, I guess. For us, seems to be all about the nitty-gritty things. Is my TLDR there? It's my TLDR. So we do have the Oracle into Phoenix this game, and Adept into Adept into Adept. Does he go for the same Adept attack as in the first game, which did catch Denver a little off guard? Oracle is easily pushed away, goes after the third base, which this is why you don't really need a Spore Crawl to the third base immediately, because it's not really saturated. If you rally your drones back home anyways. Now he's going to go ahead and grab that Spore Crawler, as a second Oracle is on the way. Much faster Twilight Council this game, so he went for a Robo before third base last game, and he went for a Robo before Twilight Council forged in the first game. Is it dedicated to those Adepts, which he did dedicate to, in total, 5 Adepts with the 1 lost. So not as much, but prioritizing the Twilight Council this time really makes me wonder, is this going to be a normal thing? He's still on all of his gases, so I guess it is just going to go into charge? No, okay. That's where I was, like, wondering, like, okay, with the Adepts, with the faster Twilight Council, is it Resonating Glaze? But I wasn't sure about the necessity of the gas requirements there. I guess he'll just bank gas, right? He'll just bank gas and then use it for Templar Archives later. Again, kind of still converging in on the same idea of a PDZ, even though the middle here is much different with Resonating Glaives. Oracle's gonna have to help out. Queens could be lifted, or 1 queen could be lifted as well, but the Adepts just needed time for the Shade to activate, go back to the safety of a Zelnaga, which Denver doesn't know what's behind this, so if there's 7 more Adepts, then chasing after them is a bad idea. Neeb does pay attention, kind of in the nick of time to save most of these Adepts. Oh, no, I actually lost 2. Oh, and then 2 more shaded forward? Wait, what happened there? Okay, yeah. That was a little bit awkward. A little bit awkward. I thought he was just barely timing that out correctly. But seeing more Adepts after already seeing 5, you gotta figure Resonating Glaze is on the way. Neeb is grabbing a third base while this goes on and starting to up that Immortal count. But right, banking just a decent bit of gas with all 4 gases being taken. The Adepts have really not done a whole lot yet. They have forced Denver to respond, though, so he's definitely not at his comfortable double expand 4th and 5th base, 80 drones really quickly. And in fact, that Adept count might have done that thing where it surprised Denver and the commentator about how many just suddenly appeared. You know, it was 5, and then it was 4 more, and then they all bulked together, and you're like, oh shit, that's actually a lot of Adepts. Denver was not quite prepared with the Roaches, so a little bit of a timing issue there. They were all ready to go. That's so different than if the Adepts are already in your mineral line. Luckily, this doesn't last forever, but oh man, good target fire from Neeb to grab like 4 extra drones towards the end. Make sure to get the most amount of damage possible. 16 drones is pretty nasty, especially because Denver did commit to a decent number of Roaches to try and stop this from doing any damage at all. Double Robo, actually. That's where most of his gas is going to go into, because he's not just quickly going to High Templars, unlike the previous 2 games. Perhaps just seeing that it is primarily Roach-based for some time. Don't have any Ling upgrades on the way or a Bailing Nest on the way. And Double Immortals will certainly take care of that. It's always kind of a weird thing, though, because Archons are also pretty damn good, right? But, alright, Double Immortals it is. Bailing Nest will be on the way. Hydrostand will be on the way. But for now, these Immortals to take care of the Roaches. It's a very small number of them anyways. And the Oracles, actually, with enough juice to shoo them away. Thank you again, another gifted sub to Angelus. Hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to give some sub love. So Overseer was seeing everything. It was like here for the entire game almost, but surprisingly missed the second Robo. Also missed the Templar Archives timing. 3 immortals. I don't know if you can really tell that was double immortal. That could just be a lot of chronos and 1 robo. I'm wondering if that would change Denver's attack plans at all. Denver just spent a lot of time recovering from the adept harassment, but it looks like he has fully recovered. 78 drones on 4 bases. But that lack of second, the double expand, is going to be hurting that higher drone count he wanted to get to, because you'll probably start seeing some oversaturation a little bit here and there. Ooh, 2 oracles barely surviving. Seriously, just barely. Big army to the right side. This looks real chonky with so many immortals. Not as many archons. They're finally coming in now. But even the immortal count was kind of intimidating. Denver has a little squad of hit units here going to the 3rd base where there is really no protection. So that might do some damage, but I think Denver's just too late producing army. He's got so many upgrades on the way too that are just not helping right here, right now. The upgrades he really needs, like centrifugal hooks. And this time there's so many more sentries than there were in the past games that a lot more force fields can be thrown down, and no Ravagers available either. This looks like a perfect army against what Denver has. And the War Prism even comes in to go for some pick-up micro if need be. Probes are going down to both Roaches and Banelings, but eventually will be cleaned up. On the other side of things, Denver is just simply losing. But oh, Banelings actually connecting with a lot of those sentries. So much for that sentry count being intimidating. We still have 5 big chonkin units, 2 Archons, 3 Immortals, really powering through here. War Prism not being touched by the Hydras. It looks like they don't have range. Actually, they do have range. They just can't get close enough. Trying to tackle the remnants of the units where the shields are still popped and the Immortals, where the Archons are still losing their shields. Finally now, targeting the War Prism. Is that going to be enough here? One last shield here from the Immortal, but it's just going to be it anyways. GG. Denver taking that damage from the Resident Enclave's attack, and then perhaps being a little greedy post that is unable to stop Neeb's push.